arcaders, it's Ray Gunn from the Arcade Archives. Welcome to another video review. This time we're going to talk about video game compilation packages, the ones that you can get for PlayStation and N64 and all the other systems they came out for. Now, back in the old days, and when I mean old days, we're going to go back about 30, maybe 33 years. If you wanted to play an arcade game, this is the way you did it. And you wanted to play Pac-Man? You put your quarter in, you played Pac-Man, and that was it. There was no home game. Wow. Well, now we go ahead to 1982, and finally we have a home version of Pac-Man. It's very playable. Most people don't like it. I grew up with it, and this is the pinnacle. This was what we had at the time, and hey, I enjoyed it like everybody else did. Well, by 1995, we had a system called the PlayStation. Everybody knows about that. CD-based technology. Of course, we could put multiple games on one disc. And that's where the whole thing started with this guy right here, the Namco Museum Series, which I have all of them. But this is volume number 1. Okay, gang, well, this is Namco Museum Volume 1. It was released in July 31st, 1996, even though it has a trademark of 1995, because it was released in Japan in November of that year. Again, the games we have on it are Pac-Man, Rally X, New Rally X, which was an update to Rally X, came out the same year, about 6 months apart, Galaga, Bosconian, Pole Position, and Toy Pop. What made these interesting was the fact that these were using the actual arcade ROMs. Now, most people don't think that's true, but it is. Where they had to make the differences, of course, are in the vertical games, such as Pac-Man and Galaga, where information was moved around. Your scoreboards were put to the right, just like we see in Galaga here. And you see it a lot more in Pac-Man, where the images are altered a little bit, the ghosts look a little different, everything else, because the image is actually squished down. Now, according to the manual, which I've never tried before, because remember, when I got this, my television weighed about 200 pounds, so I wasn't going to try it, but you could actually flip your screen vertically so that you could actually play the actual, visual arcade version. I have noticed differences in sound in Pac-Man for some strange reason. But you didn't get these just for the games. That's what made the Namco Museum series, to me, the best out of the group. It was because of the museum that you got to walk through. And let's take a look at that, shall we? We're going to go into the game itself right now. We are doing this live, by the way, so bear with us. And give us a second here. There we go. Namco Museum, Volume 1, hitting the start button. There we go. Okay, gang, we're going to check out the menu right now. As you can see in the Namco Museum series, you had, of course, 2 selections. I mean, the stereo, of course, is self-explanatory. But you could do one of 2 things. Either A, you could walk through the museum, or B, you could just play the games. Now, if you decide to do that, hit that. Your main menu comes up. There's all the games ready to go. But we're going to take a stroll through the museum because, again, that's what I bought it for. I loved playing the arcade games that I could play in the arcade because this was the first time I could do this when I got this CD. But something fascinated me about the museum and being able to walk through and see the little pieces of history that they had inside of it. So let's go inside the museum. Also, you can make Pac-Man run faster if you hit the button really fast. Little hidden thing for no apparent reason other than to do that. Okay, well, now we are inside the museum. Now, this, of course, is a virtual museum. So with the controller, we could move pan left, pan right, up, down. You could go anywhere you wanted to, depending on which buttons you hit. And I got to remember which ones. You could tilt the screen. There we go. You can go up. You can go down. Of course, hey, there's the doors we just came through. Come up here, information booth, the robot will take care of us. Pac-Man is we're Pac-Man throughout this, by the way. Okay, she does not move in this. In later versions, you're going to see that the museum curator or the information booth robot will actually move and interact, but she doesn't in these, of course. No, we're not going to register our name today. So then we can go into the museum hall. Now, for a museum title or for an early PlayStation title, load times are actually really good on this, especially the amount of graphics it had to represent. It did a really good job. Now, the first two are very similar. Once you get into Volume 3, you notice the museums actually change throughout the volumes. The first two are exactly the same. You're in a hub, and as you circle, you can see each game. Now, of course, that's where we came from. There's Toy Pop, Bosconian, Rally X, Pac-Man, of course, Galaga, Pole Position, and then the lounge. Now, the lounge is where you can see character sprites, you can hear music from the games or sound effects, and other little hidden things. As the museums evolved, there's little hidden tricks you could do to see other things. So let's start here on Pac-Man. We're going to walk right inside now. Here we go. There's also a button here you can speed up, but we're just going to walk through, you know, like normal. So basically walk through here, and you'll see that the hall contains different things, little props and other things that that Namco had released for each game, and Pac-Man will look down at them, and you can highlight them by hitting the button. As soon as Pac-Man points it out, hit your X, and it will load that in. Now, this is where it does lag a little bit, is the load times. Some of them were a little bit longer than others. This is a Pac-Man notebook. In some cases, as you can see by the menu at the bottom, I can highlight it and actually pull it in to zoom in on it. This one doesn't allow me to do that. So we exit out of that one. We can look at something else. As you walk down the hall, you can see all the neat little things that Namco released for their games. And it's quite fascinating because they were the first that I know of that did all kinds of little media things for their games, such as this. You know, typically an arcade game would have a flyer released. Sometimes you would get stuff like Zaxxon. They did little brochures, flyers for the customer to give them little hints and things like that. Which is what this is. This is called a pop card. It looked like a ghost from Pac-Man. Inside of it, it had little tips on how to play the game. Of course, it was only released in Japan, so unless you read Japanese, you'd not understand a word it said. But you could go through, and a lot of this stuff was done specifically through Namco, through their own arcade franchises that they had in Japan. You know, this, I believe, is the flyer. He's not going to look at it. Here's a shirt. The shirt you can look at as well. Let's take a look at the shirt. There we go. And you can see, you can also, there's a second shirt you can look at. There we go. It's actually a sweatshirt. So, and I think Rally X also had a sweatshirt. They both came out the same year, so they were promoting the heck out of those games. All right, and that's like a little brief kind of tour through the memorabilia. Now, as you turn the corner, this is where it gets interesting, because here is the motherboard from the game, the bezel. This is the Japanese bezel, not the American, of course. The Japanese instruction sheets. These, I believe, are tips. You can click on that and it'll give you hints. I think that's what this one is. It's been a few years that I actually sat down and played some of these. Yeah, these are the tip. This is the tip sheet you can go through. It will tell you more about the game and you know, tell you what you should be looking for. Real helpful for people that, you know, because this was a different generation. They hadn't played Pac-Man a lot, so it was good information for them. You know, people that grew up with Pac-Man kind of understood the patterns of the ghosts and things like that. But it was interesting to see that. Now, on the other side, this is a slideshow, and you can go through and look at character sprites. which was amazing for its time because people didn't get a chance to look at stuff like that. They called it the character slideshow. You can go through the animations. It'll show you each, and of course the ghosts only had two motions other than their eyes changing direction. That's them, dark. There's her eyes. That's part of one of the intermissions where his ghost suit gets ripped. There's the torn part right there, and his legs showing, and that's him without his clothes on. Interesting. And then you can go through and see Pac-Man through his life and death. Woo! Isn't that exciting? And then, of course, it goes through all the fruits. All right, now we exit out of here, and on the other side of that, Professor Pac-Man has information as well, and I don't remember what all that's about. I think that was more of a history lesson of the game. You could learn a little bit more about the game itself, which I thought was really cool because up until this point, it was really hard to get information about a game. The internet at this point was relatively new. Not many people had computers, and a lot of the information you were getting was, through magazines and things like that. Now, this is a general gameplay, how to play the game. That's pretty much it. But then it also goes into a history right here. Very, very brief. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it gave you a little taste. And you can walk through the museum and actually look at all this memorabilia before going to the game. And then once you're back in the museum, again, load times, you turn and, let's see, there we go. This is the actual game room where Pac-Man is. You go inside, and lo and behold, there's Pac-Man's house. Okay, and each area has its own environment. Now, of course, it's painted on the wall. For its time, I was utterly fascinated by this. I thought it was really cool. Now it looks a bit dated, of course, but still, it holds up. And then, of course, there's the cocktail table packet. They didn't have an upright in this one. And then you highlight it, and it goes into game mode. It does give you your test screen in the beginning when you start. Now, because I don't have a memory card in here, you can go in and adjust settings before you do anything. Let's see. We're going to hit no, because we don't have a memory card. There we go. You can do dip switch settings and things like that as well. So you can actually adjust the gameplay, which is really neat. Whoop, I actually exited out of the game. Whoops. There's a little flub for you. Okay, we're going to do yes. Okay, I think that's right. I think we did it right. Or maybe we didn't. Let's see. There we go. Now we're into the game itself. Now you'll notice there's a bezel around it to make it look a little arcade authentic, I guess. Again, this is the Japanese bezel. I think they also used it in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. You got to remember, Pac-Man was released here in the United States by Bally Midway, so ours was completely unique to the rest of the world. I don't think anybody else had that kind of course because we're here in the U.S. and unless they ordered it from here, they weren't getting one. So theirs all look pretty much the same. Of course, you hit your, let's see, there we go, hit the start button, and there's the actual game. Now again, it was pretty arcade authentic, using the actual arcade ROM, so the game played very similar. It looks a little different, sounds a little different to me, but that's just, because I've been around them most of my life, so I know what it sounds like they got the primary sounds and that's what they wanted. So. But it plays exact same. Of course, there's no speed up on this because the speed up chip was literally developed by a company here in the United States and was highly illegal at the time. So you are not going to get that on the Japanese version. I do not remember how to exit the game though. That's interesting. Been a while, guys. Let's see. We're gonna just get killed so we can get out of this.
We are currently experiencing technical difficulties due to circumstances of potentially apocalyptic significance beyond our control.
Okay, gang, we're back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I had to remember how to get to the menu. This is the games menu like we saw it before, so if you don't want to go through the museum and just play the games, this is a way to do it. We're going to do that so that you don't have to walk through each one. I kind of like the surprise of seeing what's inside it, so if you get a chance to get this game, it's not ruined completely for you. So we'll go down the list. We'll start next with Rally X. Right into Rally X. Now, what's interesting about Rally X, it came out the same year as Pac-Man. During the, I believe it's 1979 AMOA, which is the Arcade Machine Expo, Namco went to Bally Midway with two games, Pac-Man and Rally X. Namco had complete and total faith in Rally X, and Bally Midway had faith in Pac-Man. So it was kind of weird that Namco, here's this company who built this game, Pac-Man, and they didn't have a lot of faith in it. They didn't know if the American market was going to like it, but they thought, hey, Rally X is the way to go. Everybody's going to like this game. They bought both, of course. Turned out that Namco was completely wrong. Pac-Man was a huge success. Rally X was kind of a footnote in the history of video games. I honestly like the game. We won't play it. We're just going to look at the demo real quick. Basically, you are in a race car. You are on a map. You cannot see the entire thing. Of course, you see the radar on your right. Now, this game is not restricted due to it was done as a horizontal monitor game. So what you're seeing is the actual arcade graphics, nothing altered in any way, shape, or form. So you had the as you can see, you have the radar on the right. You also have a fuel gauge. So you had a limited amount of time to get around the maze and collect the flags. The flags are indicated by the yellow dots on the screen. You're the white dot. Your enemy cars are the red dots. Now, the one thing you can't see are the rocks. Rocks randomly are, well, they're not random. Every maze is exactly the same, built, so it doesn't change in any way. You collect the flags, avoid the rocks, and when a car comes up, you use a smoke screen. There is a special flag that Namco would use later on in several games, just like a lot of Japanese companies would. The Galaxian ship was one that Namco used. Well, the special flag, the one with the S next to it, was used in several games as well. Here, this special flag would actually double the point value of the rest of the flags on the screen. So tip number one is always look for your special flag first. Now, it's not highlighted in any way differently than the rest of the flags, so it's more of a, you get to know each maze and you find it. Once you know where it is, you just head to that one every single time. One of my favorite games, not like, life-altering, life-changing game, but I loved it when I played it as a kid. I think it's a really great game. But again, Namco had faith in this as opposed to Pac-Man. So it's kind of weird how history took a turn, for Pac-Man as opposed to Rally X. But this is Rally X. Okay, guys, we're going to see what Galaga looks like. Everybody knows what Galaga is. Again, the compression is due to the fact that it was done on a vertical screen first. Now it's on a horizontal. There is a switch, dip switch in the settings that allows you to play the game vertically. But could you imagine having a 200-pound television and having to flip it to play Galaga or Pac-Man? Of course, nobody did it, unless you were just crazy. Again, I think this one was done a little bit better than Pac-Man. The sounds are intact. It sounds exactly the same. All the little hidden cheats work, like the ships will stop firing the same way as they will in the arcade by leaving that last ship on the right, on the left. So it works exactly the same. The ROMs are exact. The game looks great. The only difference, again, is the fact that your score is on the right. So that's pretty much Galaga. Okay, guys, next is Toy Pop. Now, Toy Pop is interesting. It's one of those games that was released in Japan. I believe it had a very, very, very extremely limited release here in the States as what we call a conversion kit back in 1985. A conversion kit, essentially there's two ways you can look at a game. One is a dedicated. That's where, you know, you're the operator. You buy the cabinet. The game that's in it is the dedicated game, the one that was built for that cabinet. Now, a conversion kit would basically take that game, you'd pull that out and put the new game in, and now it's a brand new game in the original cabinet that you had for something else. And that's how they released Toy Pop here in the States, but it was extremely hard to find. It was not something that you saw every day. A puzzle game, you had to move blocks around to find the keys to open the door and exit. I found the game to be extremely challenging. In fact, because it's so rare, let's take a look at it right now. You can see you broke these boxes open. You had power-ups that you could get. Certain power-ups would work on certain toys, other ones would not, so you had to be very careful. In the first rounds, these yo-yos, which looked like tires, would take out the toy soldiers. But basically, you had to find the keys, unlock the door, and exit before the time ran out. So I found the game to be very challenging. It reminded me of, let's see, what else was it? Like Fairyland Story. There was a few other ones like Toy Pop, but Toy Pop was the first, the first out of the gate, just like this type of puzzle game. And so when I got this compilation, I played it a lot. And the nice thing about this one is it's two-player. So you can plug in your second controller and somebody could play along with you. The first character is supposed to be Pinocchio, and Acha is the girl. And you go through the game, and again, you just collect keys and get to the next level. I found the game to be a lot of fun. Okay, next game, pole position. Now, what I loved about this game the most was this. This game came out about the same time I got my driver's license, so I learned how to drive on pole position. So don't see me on the road. I'm only kidding. I did enjoy driving it because it was that first driving game that made you feel like you were behind the wheel, like in your face. Here it is. It was very close to being the real driving game that we wanted to experience. As you can see, arcade perfect. One very large problem though. This game was released before the disc actually was released before analog controllers came out. So it's done on the D-pad. The game plays okay, could be better, but because the fact it's on a D-pad, the controls are a little sloppy. Of course, it doesn't say prepare to qualify, which stinks, but driving is as good as it's going to get with a D-pad. You'll find yourself releasing the gas pedal often. It's not something you can, keep the pedal down and kind of, skitch through because of the fact that the D-pad is too exact for that. So you want to release your gas, and then of course that's what happens when you fishtail. But as you can see, arcade perfect. I mean, the game looks great, sounds great, but the controls really hinder this game. So out of the group, this is the one you probably won't play. Okay, guys, next is New Rally X. If regular Rally X wasn't enough, here's New Rally X. Interesting footnote, New Rally X came out, I think, about 6 months after the original. I never saw a dedicated machine in my life. In fact, I'd heard of New Rally X, but never saw it. I'm not sure if it was a ROM swap or if they actually had a dedicated machine. Slight differences in the game, but not a huge one. The big one being the lucky checkpoint. What that does is it refills your gas tank. So that was huge because the biggest problem with the original game is you had a time limit. When that fuel gauge went down, your car slowed down, everybody caught up with you, and you got killed. In this game, when you found the lucky and you wanted to try to find it later in the round, it would refill your tank, allowing you to complete the level, and then it would give you the bonus points for the amount of gas you had left in your tank. So that was a massive upgrade for this game at the time. The other one is that this had bonus rounds where the cars would not move. You had so many seconds to complete whatever was being done within that round, and then the cars would take off and come after you. So you had, maybe you had to collect all the flags before everything started, or maybe you had to find the special flag. Each one was different as you progressed. The only other major change in the game, as you can see, is the graphics, which I was not a fan of. Everything went pink instead of that green color. At least it had some, not basis in reality, but it looked natural, where the pink kind of looks stupid. But the gameplay is a little harder, and again, it adds that lucky checkpoint, so it makes it a better game in that respect. But that's pretty much it on New Rally X. Okay, guys, last game on this disc is probably the main reason why I bought it in the first place. I love Pac-Man and Galaga and all the other games, but Bosconian is very special to me. I loved it. I'm always a big fan of these obscure games, and Bosconian is definitely an obscure game by today's standards. So let's take a look at it. Interesting, Bosconian has a very kind of weird history in the fact that it almost feels like a pseudo sequel to Galaga. It has a similar feel. The ship looks the same, the star field looks the same, but everything else you can just throw out the window because it is a very, very different game. I like to feel that maybe it was a sequel and just took the game in a completely different direction. And I love this game. I think it was done very, very well. Came out in 1981, was released here in the United States by Valley Midway, so it did see an American release, but it just wasn't as popular as a lot of the other games that were out at the time. What's interesting is it takes a cue from Rally X and gives you a radar screen, so you can actually see the objects that you're after. The two main objects you're after are ships and space stations. The ships will come at you, and sometimes they will come in formations. Other times, you run into them. Space stations, on the other hand, you have to go to. All right, well, let's play this game just to show you a little bit of, give you a feel of how the game actually plays. The first thing you're going to notice, this is one of the first games with digitized sound. Literally had really good phonics, so you can understand everything it said. A little wonky with the D-pad because it's hard to do angle shots. Like you can see I'm doing angles, but it takes a little bit of effort. With the original stick, it was great. You're going to notice ships are going to come at you, sometimes in formations. Your condition will go from green to yellow to red, depending on when those formations appear. You can destroy mines, just don't be near them. Rocks you can destroy, a la asteroids. Now, space stations. One of two ways to destroy them. There are 6 little nubs on each hub. Oops, there's a battle station right there. Formation attack. Of course, I got killed because I'm talking. You can either do one of two things. Either destroy, like I said, the little wheels on the end of the hub, like that. All 6 will destroy the space station, or go for the center. Now, in your first round, the station is open, so the reactor core is easy to get to. In later rounds, that door closes, and then later on, the door will close, open up, and there'll be a missile in there that will actually shoot out towards you. Now, each wheel can fire its mines or whatever those are. So your object is very simple. You're destroying every space station to advance to the next round. Now, if you notice, the formation's even shown to you. What kind of formation is it? It'll say either it's a straight line, or it's a group of 5, or a group of 6. Very, very cool little game. Again, highly underrated, I think. You'll notice if I shoot the mothership that all of them separate. If you get all of the group, you get a bonus. Let's see what happens when now, what happens in later rounds is they'll give you kind of a little help in the fact that the stations will all be lined up. So you're able to you can get them faster. Of course, it just got killed. Now, one thing you're going to notice on this game, which I think is really cool, this was one of the first games that had a continue. So you could actually, put your coin in and hit start, and it'll leave you right, not only at the same round, but with the same amount of space stations left, so you don't have to start that round over again. Now, your hardcore players would say that that was kind of a cheat, a rip-off, and maybe that's why the game didn't do so well. But honestly, I thought that was a really cool idea because given the game's difficulty level at the time, this was a rather difficult game to play. And especially on the PlayStation where the controls were a little more wonky than we're used to. Now you'll notice our
minefield, our asteroid field's gotten bigger. So you want to, in there you see the doors open up. Now, when you're around again, there'll be a guided missile that'll shoot out at you. So you gotta be careful there. And also later on, as the space stations will become more, there'll be more stations to destroy. So one of the things you probably want to start doing as soon as you start around is clear a path, because you're going to be frequenting that area often, especially if you don't get the space station first shot. Maybe you decide you're going to go off another section, so you got to come back to it. So you want to make sure that you have a clear path getting around, or else it's going to make it very difficult to get back to the formation. Just an all-around really tight package of the game. I think this game was highly overlooked by a lot of people. It also came out in a year where there was a ton of games, a slew, and especially space games. There was so many. So, you know, it had to compete even with its own sister game, Galaga. So it made it, I think, a little more obscure. One of the few games I've always wanted to have a cabinet for, but this is Bosconian.
Ray?
Oh, I forgot you guys were here. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys very, very much for watching our first video review on our compilation series. We started this week with the PlayStation 1 version of the Namco Museum Volume 1. Now, in the upcoming weeks and months, we'll be going over even more compilation discs, including the rest of the Namco Museum and other ones that I have, plus other new ones that are going to be coming to me as we do these video reviews. So please keep coming back to see us. Hit the subscribe button below for Arcade Archives, and please like this page and like this video. Again, thank you very much for watching. Keep playing like it's 1981, and I'll see you guys back here at the Temple 80s at the Arcade Archives. See you later.